of the story. It's called The Three Questions. Maylin worked very, very hard with her mother every day of her life, and yet they remained so poor, day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month out, year in, year out. When she turned 18, she said to her mother, I do not know why we work so hard, and yet we remain so poor. I am going to go and ask the celestial being who lives west beyond the sunset. And so she started out on her journey. She kissed her mother goodbye in the doorway of their ramshackle shack on the edge of Olive Lake that was very, very polluted and smelly. Goodbye, mother. And she started to walk. She walked and she walked a very long time until at last she came to an old woman's farm. She went up to the farmhouse and peeped in the windows where the curtains were just spread apart. And she saw the old woman making dinner with the help of her very handsome son, who looked to be just about Maylin's age. She knocked on the door. The woman opened the door, but there was no sign of her son. Please, come in, weary traveler. May I offer you some dinner and a place to stay? Oh, yes, said Maylin. I have traveled so very far. May I ask why? I am going to see the celestial being who lives west beyond the sunset, and I am going to ask him a question. The old woman looked at her sharply. I could never leave my farm for that long, but I wonder, could you ask the celestial being a question for me? I have a son who is 18 years old, and he has never spoken one word in his life. Oh, of course I will. And the two of them sat down to dinner and ate in contented silence. In the morning, Maylin started again on her journey down the road, and she walked a very, very long time until at last she came to another farmhouse where there lived an old man. Hello there, weary traveler. I have a barn if you need a place to stay. Oh, yes, said Maylin. I have traveled so long. Well, if it's not too much to ask, maybe you could tell me why. I am going to see the celestial being who lives west beyond the sunset to ask some questions. Oh, come with me. And the old man took her through the house to a garden, all walled in behind the house. And there, right in the center, was the most beautiful orange tree, strong and tall and full of green leaves, but not one orange. Yes, said the man, this orange tree has been healthy for as long as I've been here, but not once has it bloomed or borne fruit. Could you ask the celestial being why? Of course, said Maylin. I'd be happy to. And she spent the night in the barn, and in the morning she got up and she began to walk, and she walked a very, very, very long time, and then she saw it. Up in the mountains, there was the outline of a palace, but between the palace and Maylin was a loud, white-watered, rushing river. Oh, the roar of it was terrifying. She gathered her courage and she went closer, closer, closer to the edge until a dragon with sharp teeth came up out of the river. It gnashed its mouth. It
Oh,
roared. It showed off its
oh,
beautiful pearl that was on its forehead. Maylin fell down on her bottom and scrambled away. Wait, said the dragon. Come back. I just wanted to give you a ride. Oh, said Maylin. Well, that would be very nice. Thank you. And the dragon stretched out his neck so Maylin could climb on, and he swam across the wild river. When Maylin got to the other side, she said, Thank you so much. I am going to ask the celestial being who lives in that palace some questions. Oh, could you ask one for me? I have been doing good deeds all my life, but I have never been taken up into the sky. Could you ask why? Of course, said Maylin. And with that, the dragon disappeared back into the river, and Maylin hurried on up to the palace. She was shown right in through the doors and to a throne room that was more magnificent than anything she had imagined. And there, on a golden throne encrusted with jewels, was a tiny little elder with wrinkly skin and straight gray hair in big robes, just sitting and giggling on the throne. Oh, celestial being, I wonder if I could ask you 4 questions. Little girl, I cannot answer an even number of questions. I could answer 1, but not 2, 3, but not 4. Thought Maylin. Well, who am I to argue with the way of celestial beings? And so she asked first the question that the old woman had asked about her son who had not spoken a word. And then she asked about the orange tree that the farmer had. And then she had to decide, should she ask her own question or that of the dragon? Well, I am young and healthy, and perhaps I'll be able to come back someday. Celestial being, why does the dragon who lives in the river, who has done good deeds all of his life, why hasn't he been taken up into the sky? Well, the little old elder answered all of her questions most graciously. And with that, Maylin turned around and started on the long journey home. When she got to the river, the dragon popped out. Oh, Maylin! Oh, I am so happy to see you. Please, won't you tell me, did you find out the answer to my question? Oh, yes. You must do 2 things before you are going to ascend up into the sky. What are they? Well, first, you must take me across the river. And the dragon did. What else? You must get rid of that pearl on your forehead. I had forgotten about this pearl. Thank you. And with that, the dragon removed the pearl and gave it to Maylin. And immediately the dragon rose higher and higher and higher up into the sky until she could see only a speck and then no dragon at all. Thank you. And she started down the road. When she got to the old man's farm, he came out of the door and ran out to greet her. Oh, Maylin, I am so happy to see you. Tell me, Did you find out the answer to my question? Yes. The celestial being says the reason that your orange tree has not given fruit is because buried in the roots there is a large jar of gold and another twice as big full of silver. If you remove them, the tree will bear beautiful oranges.
Ooh.
Oh, yes. The farmer gathered his men together and they started to dig. And sure enough, there was a large jar full of gold coins and another one twice as big, full of solid silver. As soon as they were removed from the roots, the tree bloomed and then became filled with large, juicy oranges. Oh, thank you, Malin. Here, you must have a bag of oranges. Oh, yes, and a bag of silver, and a bag of gold as well. Well, Malin continued on her journey with all of her bags of treasure. When she got to the old woman's farm, she was waiting, looking out the window. And as soon as she saw Maylin, she ran out and said, "Oh, Maylin, Maylin, were you able to ask the celestial being my question about my son?" "Yes, yes. The celestial being says that as soon as your son sees the woman that he is to marry, he will speak." Just then, the woman's handsome son came up over the hill and down to where they were speaking. He looked a long time at Maylin,
Hmm.
and then he said, "Mother, aren't you going to introduce us?" His mother was so delighted. She made arrangements for the two to marry that very day. And then Maylin and her new husband went down the road with her treasures. And when she got to Olive Lake, her mother was watching for her. "Oh, Malin, I didn't know if I was ever going to see you again." "Mother, look, I have brought back treasures, and this is my new husband, Lee. And I have a wonderful mother-in-law as well." "Oh, and look, Mother, here I have a bag of oranges, a bag of silver, a bag of gold, and look at this beautiful pearl that came from a dragon's forehead."
Ooh.
"Maylin, such treasures." "Yes, Mother. Everything would be perfect if only Olive Lake did not smell." And as soon as she said it, the pearl shrank just a little in size. But Olive Lake began to transform its inky blackness into a pure, beautiful crystalline blue. And willow trees sprang up on its edges, and koi fish swam within. "The pearl heard your wish, Maylin. We are saved." And it was true. From that day forward, Maylin and her mother and her husband and her mother-in-law never had to wonder why they worked so hard and stayed so poor. So that's the three questions, and thank you all very much. I love having your feedback out loud and in the chat. We really appreciate that. That dragon puppet was made by Twisted Heart Puppet Works. Tanya Yeager had an auction, and I was able to pick that up from them there. So